What's the most disgusting thing that's ever been inside your mouth and how did it get there? A buddy of mine dips tobacco. He was spitting into an empty beer bottle which he put down next to my beer bottle. Long story short, I took a big swig of his spit dip mixture and ended up spraying it all over his living room. Neither of us was happy. I've actually seen this happen way too many times. Mostly kids drinking their own spit though. College parties where kids are double fisting cans, one for beer and the other for spit. This and the combination of being drunk always caused a slight mix-up. They should depict this situation in anti-tobacco commercials. Poop. I was like 6 years old and we were having hot dogs. I went to the bathroom and did not wash my hands. When I got back to the table, I saw something that I assumed was ketchup on my fingertip, so 6-year-old me decided to lick it. I am dry heaving just reliving the moment. Decaying gecko. I grabbed a glass out of the cupboard and briefly looked at it. It was clean, or so I thought. Filled my cup up with Coke, went, sat at my computer and got back to my game, slowly sipping away. I get to the last few mouthfuls and get to this slimy thing. I spat it out real quick and run to the sink, rinsing my mouth out. There was more in the bottom of the glass, so I pour it into the sink to inspect. I missed the grossness when I grabbed the glass because the glass faded to a dark color at the bottom, so the quick cursory glance missed it. Coke hasn't tasted the same. When I first started dating my fiance, she was doing laundry at my place since I had a washer dryer. Long story short, she decided to put some detergent into a water bottle to make it easy to bring over, and in the middle of the night I found it on the bathroom sink while relieving myself. I took a swig and luckily knew something was terribly wrong before swallowing. Afterwards I couldn't swear for 3 days. I wonder what the age limit is for people to get the last line of this. I was awakened one morning by a foul taste in my mouth. My infant son had climbed out of his crib and was retrieving little crap balls from his diaper and putting them in my mouth. This happened a long time ago, but I still remember the taste. And that's the day I put my son up for adoption. A combination of ground up cow parts, poop, bile and blood. It was awful. I work at a beef processing plant in probably the worst department. I'm in rendering, which means I get all the diseased cows that are destined to become people food. We grind them up and send them off in a pressurized tank to be cooked down into a fine powder. Well, the pressurized tank opened while it was sending and launched cow goo everywhere and I got a healthy sized mouthful of it. Bachelor pad in my early 20s. Drunk. Drinking beer. Did not realize that there was a garbage can, couple-week-old beer can with cigarette butts, bits of old food that fell on table, etc. on the table. Taking shots of liquor with friends. Need something to chase it with, and quickly. Pick up wrong can and throw it back. Takes me 2 seconds to realize. 2 seconds is not a long time, but next time you have a can of something, drink it for 2 seconds, and you'll realize 2 seconds is a freaking eternity. I almost gagged thinking about that taste. A palmetto bug. I live in Florida, and palmetto bugs love the hot, humid weather and the live oaks that grow everywhere. They're huge and gross and I have a pretty serious phobia of them. One summer night, some friends and I were hanging out on our porch one night having a few beers. I took a swig out of my bottle and felt what I initially thought was a cigarette butt in my mouth. I fished it out of my mouth and started to ask who the frick had put a cigarette butt in my beer, but I saw that I was actually holding a gigantic bug. Instead, it was probably the length of my thumb. Spent the rest of the night in the bathroom swishing mouthwash and willing myself not to throw up. Yeah, I lived in Florida. Call them what you will, but they are roaches. Bottom line, that's nasty. I'm a home care aide. I essentially act as a big brother to individuals. One time, a few years back, I was taking a young man to the YMCA to do some ping pong and swimming. He had an issue with overstuffing his mouth and not chewing his food correctly, so, after eating a hot dog in 2 bites, he began to throw up. I didn't have a bag or anything and we were driving on the highway, so I gave him a big gulp cup with some ice left in it to vomit in, which he filled to the brim with chunky hot dog puke. After my shift ended that night, on my drive home, I absent-mindedly picked up my big gulp cup to get a couple ice cubes to crunch on and ended up filling my mouth with his hot dog puke. It changed me. Oh god. This made me want to die. I graduated a couple years back and had a summer off before I got my current job. Anyway, I was crashing at my parents and I would do things around the house, like fix broken cupboards and clean out rooms, painting random things that just needed to be fixed up. Anyway, my little brother and his girlfriend were also staying with my mom because they were home from college for the summer. They had jobs during the day so I would be there alone. One day I was mowing the lawn. My mom's yard isn't huge, but it is all on a fairly steep hill. Because of the hill, she never had a riding lawn mower, so it all had to be done with a push mower. Not too bad, but on really hot days it was sort of tough. I mowed the lawn on a particularly hot day and was really thirsty, so I went to the fridge and there was milk and a Gatorade that my little brother had. As poor college students, we both had the mentality of don't touch my crap and Gatorade is gold, so I poured a glass of milk. Didn't do the trick, so I got some tap water. Nope. I said frick it, I'll buy him a new Gatorade and began to chug the bottle. I got about halfway through when I felt something pass by my lips. I immediately put the bottle down and put it back in the fridge. I didn't think about it after that. I should have known something was up when he didn't say anything about half his Gatorade missing. But it wasn't until a month or two later, I was talking to him on the phone and it hit me. I asked what was wrong with it and he responded with, "You didn't drink that, did you? Crap." So he goes on to tell me about how he was really sick. I remember that he was coughing all through the night and was really sick. You could almost feel the phlegm as he was coughing. It was really gross. I guess he had gone to sleep one night with said Gatorade, was coughing and didn't want to get up to keep spitting out his sick loogies. So in the bottle they went, and he woke up early to go to work. Later, his girlfriend woke up and thought she was doing him a favor by putting his Gatorade in the fridge for him. One thing led to another and I chugged my little brother's sick phlegm. TL. Doctor drank my little brother's sickness thanks to his girlfriend. This is going to be buried, but is by far the most disgusting thing in the thread. A duck embryo. I started by eating it at a family function. Tried a bit of diplomacy by eating some of my wife's culture foods, you know, impress the in-laws. Ended when I saw the beak. My ex-girlfriend once had a parasite in her butthole and I did not know this. I was going butt to mouth and having part of a crap slime covered tapeworm in your mouth makes you wish you were dead. I still get shivers from thinking about that crap. Chalk. I was addicted to eating chalk in middle school. It's probably not as disgusting as some of the things on this thread, but for me looking back makes me feel disgusting. I'm more disgusted by this than the used condom kid. Just the texture chalk and imaging it on my teeth. Oh god. I read like 5 replies on this thread and I feel genuine need to brush my teeth and drink a bottle of mouthwash. Turn back and stop reading while you still have the opportunity. Ooh, drinking mouthwash is super gross. I had to cough while rinsing with mouthwash once and accidentally swallowed it. Ooh. Stomach cramps too. Probably dog crap. I mean, think about all the gross crap they eat, then they digest it and crap it out of their butt. How did it get there? Well, being a toddler is quite the learning experience and there's a lot of trial and error. Drank my own freaking dip spit on accident. Thinking about it makes me want to puke, but it sure helped me quit dipping. My friend, while he was still living with his parents, was a regular dipper, but his parents strongly disapproved. He got caught because they found his full chew spit bottle and they told him he could drink the whole thing or be grounded for a month. No puking either. He drank the whole thing without puking and as far as I know still dips regularly. My sister works in a chocolate factory. She often brings all sorts of strange chocolate bars like chili strawberry or other weird stuff where I don't even know what's in there because she gets the ones that didn't pass quality check for free and they are not labeled. One day I opened a blind bag and ate half a bar of it. It was some sort of milk chocolate with nuts and mint. I have never had one like that before, but I like mint and it tasted alright. Later that day I was visiting a friend and we played video games and such stuff and I had to fart really badly. I silently let some gas out and when it reached my nose it smelled like a nasty rotten cadaver. It smelled so bad I almost thought this gas was toxic. The only way to describe it is that it smelled like death. When my friend smelled it he logged it at how bad it smelled and opened all the windows. But I just kept farting. It was unbearable and we decided to go outside. I didn't really had a stomachache, but I told him I had and went home. After I got home and took a long and nasty crap, I went in my room and saw the rest of my chocolate. I was a bit hungry, so I broke a bit of it. On the underside were webs similar to one from a spider. I upturned the rest of the chocolate to find maggots, and I'm not sure if the web things were cocoons or mold. Chocolate doesn't go off date for quite some time, but the nuts in it apparently can. Never trust anything tasting like mint when mint is not printed on the packaging. TLDR. I thought I ate some strange flavored chocolate. Turned out to be chocolate with mold and maggot as a special ingredient. A dead person's decomposing fingers. I worked as an autopsy assistant for several years, and before the post-mortem we'd have to undress the bodies. I was helping another assistant undress a guy who had already started decomposing and thus was a little juicy. We'd hoisted one arm up over his head to get the shirt off. I was standing next to the body pulling near his elbow while the other assistant was tugging on the shirt sleeve when it came loose all of a sudden due to some skin slip. His arm came flying back into my face with his wet, degloved hand hitting me right in the mouth. It was a sour, rotten taste that was just compounded by knowing what it was from. I rinsed my mouth with peroxide a few times, but the lingering soreness of my face served to remind me of the event for the next few days. You win. I can't think of anything worse than that. Oh man. When I worked at dog kennels years ago, I was too short to throw heavy bags into the full dumpsters, so I had a system to flip the bags up on top. I ended that system when one did not get high enough and bust open, spilling a massive amount of sick puppy crap all over me while I was looking up, with my mouth getting pretty dang full. Never threw up so hard in my life. There was a coccidia and giardia outbreak at the time, so I had the runs for a week and got pink eye. I was no longer required to do dumpster runs after that. Probably a penny when I was a little kid. Once you realize how dirty money is, it's pretty bad thinking that I used to put them in my mouth. Especially since that penny was in my butt. I once accidentally smoked the cat. She loved the ganj, and since a little kid would come running from the other side of the house if she smelled it or even heard the flick of a bick. Well, one day the timing was all wrong and she jumped in my lap as I was taking a bong rip. It all happened so fast. I was startled and stood up as I pulled the carb. A bit of her fluffy tail got singed as I inhaled a massive rip. God, it was terrible. It was the smell of burnt hair times 1000 hitting the back of my throat like a Brillo pad bullet. I cried. She was fine. My wife had a cat like that. It would hear the lighter and come running. We never figured out if it liked getting high or just knew it would have an immobile audience for the next couple hours. I always go to the gym before I go to work. I come back home and make a protein shake. After I blend it together, I pour it into the plastic pitchers you would get from a beer festival. After I pour this protein shake in, I usually finish putting my shoes on or something, then leave. I always drink my protein shake in my car on the way to work. Multitask, you know. I was a mile from my home, and I'm drinking my protein shake and I feel a big chunk. The only solid thing in my protein shakes is a banana. This is too stiff to be a banana. I spit it into my hand. It's a dong roach split in half. I had just killed an adult dong roach in my mouth. The taste, it was so bad. I involuntarily vomited my protein shake against my dashboard almost the second the taste hit my tongue. I spilled the remaining portion of my giant butt protein shake all over my car when I tried to cover my mouth. I took the day off that day from work. TLDR, gains have a cost. My wife's friend had her wisdom teeth removed. A few days later, her cheeks were puffed up like a chipmunk. She thought it was just swelling. It wasn't. She was in class when one of them ruptured and filled her entire mouth with hot, grey, lumpy pus. I was the victim of this. My jaw ached the second day after and I was rubbing it. A huge amount of pus just slammed into the back of my throat. I promptly vomited everywhere. Don't eat anything with seeds following a tooth removal. It will not end well. Cigarette ash Coca-Cola. When I was about 4, I went on a picnic with my family. As a child, I would dive on the chance to obtain anything sugary or sweet. When I noticed that my mum left her bottle of Coke idle, I dove on it only to realize that she had been using it as an ashtray. The taste and feel was revolting. Couldn't even begin to estimate the number of times I drank this mixture from age 2 to 6. Lube. Had just eaten weed cookies, lying comatose on a chair. Friend comes up, says this is a shot of vodka. Wasn't, was lube. Oh god, the hives. Blue food coloring because I used it to decorate an ice cream cone and it leaked out the bottom, so I drank it and it tasted like chemicals. Also pig bowel. Once at a party, me and my friend were playing around with some M&Ms, tossing them in the air at each other and catching them in our mouths. Well, my friend grabbed some cat food when I wasn't looking, and with the perfect arc I caught that crap in my mouth. I just couldn't let my boy down. Needless to say, we have trust issues now. Not me, but my daughter when she was 1 and still crawling a bit. My dog came in from the backyard, and a large, blue-colored, full of blood tick fell onto the floor. My daughter immediately picked it up and popped it in her mouth. It broke open in her mouth and dark blood was all over her only 2 bottom teeth. I could only get out the tick's skin. I gag writing this. Cadaver flesh, more specifically from the bicep. It was during a dissection anatomy class. My classmates thought it would be fun to frolic with the dead body, making incisions left, right and center, and right then, a section of the bicep landed right at my month. The taste of cadaver well marinated in formaldehyde and nebinol lingered in my mouth for a long time. I know a guy at my uni who got a mouthful of months-old cadaver crap when they dissected their cadaver's intestines. For some reason when they made the incision it just spurted out. Holding my 2-month-old over my head, talking to her as she laughs. Without warning she projectile vomits straight into my gaping pie hole. Her aim was both impressive and appalling as she hit the bullseye with such velocity I really had no chance. Calmly hand daughter to wife who is crying, laughing, cringing, and I bolt to the bathroom to spew a rainbow torrent of my own vomit mixed with baby bath and then clean up by gargling with Listerine and a few beers. I once saw a guy suck a condom up his nose and pull it out his mouth. Everybody laughed and thought he was cool. I wanted some of that action, so a few weeks later I decided to try it in an effort to get tips while bartending in a nightclub. There's 2 things they don't tell you about this trick. 1. The taste and smell. Jamming a spermicide-soaked latex balloon through your sinuses tends to leave the most overwhelming and disgusting smell and taste in your nose and mouth. 2. To reach the condom you have to touch the back of your throat, activating your gag reflex. These things combined made me vomit all over the bar and my customers, all while the condom was still in place, flapping around like a rubber spew spreader. Pulling it out of my nose hurt like frick and made me vomit again. I was given a written warning and never got any tips that night. Worst trick ever. I'm late to the party, but I think mine is worth sharing regardless. When I was in high school I got my wisdom teeth taken out. They didn't hurt or anything, but an x-ray I got showed that they were basically sideways and the dentist thought those are definitely coming out eventually, so we might as well get them while it's not an inconvenience, because really, what difference does it make? I was knocked out for the surgery, but I saw the teeth after they were removed. They were so large that they had to crack each one into quarters to pull them out. The doctor gave me a syringe on the way out, telling me that once I'm healed up enough, I should spray my new mouth holes with water to flush out any food that may be in there 3 times a day for 4 weeks. Well, he told this to my dad because I was fricked from the anesthesia. Due to the size of the teeth that were removed, it was a few days before my mouth was healed enough to do anything other than bleed everywhere. Once I was back in action I followed orders and often gave my gums a good blasting to keep them clean. I also found a new pastime of exploring the new geography of my jaw by sticking my tongue into the holes. After roughly 2.5 weeks I was back to 100%. My face didn't hurt at all and I hadn't bled in a while, so I stopped using the syringe like the genius I was. Within a few days my lower right jaw started to hurt again, and within a few more days it had started to swell and I lost a lot of my jaw mobility. My dad takes me back to the surgeon's office where I got the teeth taken out, and he is kind enough to take a look right there. I was in the same room as the surgery and I explained as best as I could how I had failed him. He pushes my head back and looks into my mouth for a moment. He then grabs a utensil from his work table, looks me in the eye and says, "You aren't going to like this," and then stabs my swollen jaw with a shiny metal object. The initial burst of pain wasn't so bad compared to what came right after it. I could feel a thick ooze coming out of the punctured tissue. The first thing I noticed was how warm it was compared to the rest of my mouth. Then I was hit by a taste that I'll never forget. It was like sour pennies mixed with vomit and blood. It was so awful I almost spat it out right there on the floor, but thankfully I was given a cup real quick. Whatever came out of my mouth was a mix of yellow pus and red blood and smelled almost as bad as it tasted. The doctor gave me a prescription for antibiotics and another syringe and sent me on my way. I got to relive the moment again and again because I had to push the outside of my jaw with my thumb to push out any pus that accumulated in the wound, and every time I would get a sample of that same flavor. It was terrible. TLDR. Didn't listen to the dentist. Got a mouthful of pus. Fluid from an exit. My high school boyfriend and I were making out for the first time, and it popped in my mouth when I kissed his neck. I asked for a toothbrush and he said he didn't have one, but offered me the mostly finished, who knows how old, can of Mountain Dew on his desk. I suddenly regretted every decision that had ever led me to that moment. On the drive home I ate an entire box of orange Tic Tacs. A couple winters ago, I got my wisdom teeth out. The surgery went well and my recovery did as well. A week and a half later though, I felt raised tissue on the side of my gums near where one of the teeth was removed. I thought it was a canker sore and I messed with that for the entirety of work. When I was driving home though, I started to probe that bee a little more and then I felt a pop. It wasn't a canker sore. It was a cyst. I freaked the frick out and pulled into the nearest parking lot where I drained what must have been a cup of pus and blood from my mouth. That was fun. I once popped a back pimple for a friend of mine because he couldn't reach it. It popped into my mouth. It was terrible. The infamous poop loop. One morning when I was a kid, I woke up and took a crap. For some reason back then, I would only rinse my hands off with water, but not soap when I pooped. I then went downstairs to eat a bowl of Fruit Loops. I was eating away when I bit into something that was soggy and tasted awful. It spit out the mush and it was a little brown but had mixed with the other colors of the cereal. I'm not entirely sure it wasn't a Fruit Loop that got burned or something, but I'm also not entirely sure it wasn't poop. A fine mixture of pee from my brothers and myself. Growing up with 4 older brothers and 1 bathroom, we would take leaks into soda bottles so my mom and sister could use the actual John. Basically someone left the bottle on the table. It was a 7-Up bottle. It was dark and I was thirsty. I took a nice big gulp from the family distillery. I don't drink 7-Up anymore. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.